Good evening, everyone. This is Diedrich Martin, Superintendent for Caledonia Community School. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our town hall meeting tonight. You see some information on the screen, and that is basically a quick review of our meeting norms. And that is to eliminate background distractions. Only our panelists will be speaking publicly tonight. However, if you are participating via Zoom, you will have an opportunity to submit your comments or questions. And so we ask that you do so by using the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen if you're participating in Zoom. There will be two opportunities during tonight's presentation where the panelists will answer any questions submitted. And after the event is finished, if there are other questions, you can surely submit those questions as well. But we will be creating a frequently asked questions document and publishing that to our website in a few days to clarify any questions that were asked and maybe not answered in the time allotted tonight. So with that being stated, I want to go ahead and begin with our meeting. And if we can go to the next slide. So in the past, this past year, if it's taught us anything, it is that we need to be flexible, nimble, and responsive. Our CCS staff, our students, and our families have consistently risen to meet many challenges that have been put before us. This year, we've been forced to grow and explore alternative ways to get to the end goal of preparing our students for college and career readiness. We know that not everything has been ideal, but we have made huge strides in virtual learning. And we found out some things that some of our students actually thrive in this type of environment. With this in mind, we are planning to have face-to-face instruction as the default for all CCS students this fall. For those students who thrive in online learning environments, or for those families who prefer this mode of instruction, we are creating the Caledonia Connected Online School instead of forcing those students back into the in-person learning environment or having them leave our district for other inferior virtual schools. We want to offer these students a new opportunity at CCS. So tonight, we're going to share information about a new fully virtual K-12 online school called Cal Connected. This virtual school option builds off everything that we've learned this year, but it's completely different than what we did this past year. We also are learning from our mistakes. While last year was focused on meeting the needs of the pandemic, and a lot of the things that we were doing were driven based on the pandemic and having to respond and move so quickly, moving forward, we want to be more strategic and intentional with our virtual learning. Cal Connected offers a solution for students and parents who are looking for an alternative to the traditional face-to-face. It will be a separate virtual school that is not connected to any one building. Virtual teachers will be working to develop a curriculum that meets the needs of the virtual learners. Our face-to-face teachers will be teaching in person, face-to-face. Cal Connected will require that families fully commit to virtual learning for the full year. Students will not be allowed to go back and forth in between in-person and virtual. During tonight's presentation, we're going to cover the following. We're going to talk about curriculum, staffing, timelines, enrollment, and support. Before we begin, I just want to reiterate that there are still many moving parts involved in launching Cal Connect for this fall. We will do our best to answer your questions, and we will give you the information you need, both tonight as well as in the coming weeks and months, so that you can better prepare. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kristen Flynn, our Executive Director of Student Achievement.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Well, as Dr. Martin mentioned, there is really two options next year. We have our fully traditional school, so on the side with all of the round purple circles, those are all representing all of our school buildings. And those will be like we've seen in the past prior to our pandemic year, with Caledonia teachers face-to-face, our locally developed content. And then if students have to move for whatever reason, whether we have another outbreak, whether we are forced to by the health department, whether students are individually or classroom quarantined, there will be a use of Google Classroom or other approved district platform with those face-to-face teachers. So those students then would be able to access content if they needed to pivot to virtual learning for a time where we're hybrid or fully virtual. What we're going to be talking about tonight is the fully online school. So Caledonia Connected is separate from that. That will be our own Caledonia teachers as well. Those that choose to want to apply to become an online teacher for Caledonia Connected. It will be fully online. There will only be an option to make a switch at the semester break, so after semester 1. We will be working to develop locally developed K-12 content, working with other online partners and people that have done this previous to us. And we are using Canvas as our learning management platform, K-12. So again, students that enroll in Caledonia Connected will be online this fall when we start the 21-22 school year. So one of the things that we have learned, as Dr. Martin said, we've learned from our mistakes, is just really clarifying what are the characteristics of students that are successful online learners. And what we've discovered this year is not only are students comfortable in an online environment, but they are self-motivated, they're self-disciplined, they don't get easily frustrated, they're kind of goal-oriented, they're really have a regular check-in and engagement online, they're not going days and weeks without being online, and also that there's just parental support, that the parents are aware of what's going on, they're checking in on grades, those kinds of things. Those have been the most successful online learners that we've seen, not just with us, but across the state and across the country with other school districts, that these are the characteristics of students that are successful. What's going to be options available for online learners are that students at the high school or the secondary level will still be able to participate in extracurricular sports and other athletics and clubs, that there will be options for advanced placement courses, that there will be on-site online support. So while students will be fully online at Cal Connected, the physical location for students to come and get support from their teacher and to take local and state assessments will be in a lab and classroom space at Craft Meadows, which middle school this year, but will be Craft Meadows Intermediate School next year. All students at Caledonia Connected will get one-on-one Chromebooks, so they will have their own device. And we want to make sure that any roadblocks that we had this past spring are removed. So for instance, students that want to participate fully online, and this is the best choice for them and their family, that if they don't have internet, that we make sure that we make that available to them with hotspot availability. One of the other things that we discovered this year in talking to parents from virtual advisory council or virtual advisory committee meeting and talking to others about the advantages or actually hearing student stories as well, are some of the students did really well doing this online learning, that there were advantages to them. And so some of the things to the last bullet here list are just that they had to improve their communication skills, for instance, because they weren't always communicating face to face. So it required them to be more thoughtful and intentional about that. That there was a variety of course selections, that students had fewer distractions, and students could really advance their learning in a flexible way throughout the time that they were online. So just again, advantages of that, and we know that some families really appreciated that option this past year. So in terms of the curriculum, we are focusing in, as I mentioned earlier, on our learning management system K-12, so there's consistency with any student you might have. So if you have a first grader, a sixth grader, and an 11th grader, they're all going to be on the same learning management system. So it's not multiple different systems online that your students would be accessing. It's going to also allow us, that we didn't have this past year, the ability to customize content and reports and parent access and progress that we weren't able to do with working with a third party. Learned a lot about just learning management systems in general and what we can and can't do. So really excited to be able to do that. And we're also excited that this integrates with PowerSchool, our student information system. So it's just going to be, it's a lot more seamless. A lot of this testing has already been going on with our technology team this spring and will continue. Our focus for this first few weeks of the summer and into the summer and into next year will be K-5. And what that will be is our own Cal teachers who are teaching online, working directly with Canvas and other third-party vendors to deliver our own curriculum, working with the face-to-face teacher. So let's take a third grade example, a third grade face-to-face teacher working with an online third grade teacher and making sure that the alignment of our curriculum is a lot more seamless between the two. It's also going to help with a transition, should there be one at the semester, and knowing exactly where students are at any given time. And some of that, again, will be afforded to us because we're going to have an integration with our student information system where we have grades and reporting. At the 6-12 level for this coming year, the first year, 21-22, it will be on a Canvas learning management system, and it will be Michigan virtual courses that will be available, both for core and for elective options. So just to clarify, if you choose fully online Cal Connected at the 6-12 level, well, really K-12 level, the electives will be Michigan virtual electives for 6-12 and then locally developed for K-5. That's just for the 21-22 school year. Starting in the 22-23 school year, we will be working on 6-12 online content to be our own content, moving away from Michigan virtual with a longer, more strategic plan over the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to take us to develop. Developing content at the secondary level is a lot more complex. There are a lot more, boxes to check or hoops to jump through, especially at the high school in terms of courses that meet, NCAA accreditation, AP College Board approval, accessibility. There are a lot of national standards for online courses, so we need to take a look at the national standards and make sure that we are meeting and exceeding those standards for that at the secondary level, and that's going to take a little bit of time, which is why we're starting at the K-5 level. We also have a lot of partners at the 6-12 level that have been doing this online course options that we can utilize for the last 20 plus years, and there's very little at the K-5 space that we deem to be quality. So we want to make sure that we utilize our own staff and know that we can do a much better quality job in producing that for the K-5 this coming year. So notice that there, as we go into the 23, 24, and 24-25 school years, we are looking at ways to have continuous improvement. So once all the courses are developed, it will be how do we maintain these courses? How do we keep the content fresh? How do we fix broken links? How do we make sure that we have eyes on the course that address any issues that might have come up that year with plagiarism or things that are out publicly on the internet? So it'll be a whole bunch of things, just like any other online school or online provider would have to do, that we would now have to do as a school district to be able to maintain a quality online program. So in terms of staffing, as I mentioned, we'll be using existing Caledonia staff for online instruction, and we may need actually additional staff depending on enrollment. We know that we've had some interest from some homeschool families who might be interested in doing this fully online option through Caledonia Community Schools. So again, we may need additional staff, and that window of time I'll talk about in just a moment, our hiring window and our enrollment window. We currently have had some existing support, as I mentioned, from a virtual advisory committee of parents. We've also had lead online mentors this year, administrators, teachers, our technology team, do research and demonstrations this last, really since we started this back in the fall, just getting feedback about how this is going, what's not going well, how can we make improvements, and the things that we need to do to streamline this for this coming year. As I mentioned, the technology team is also testing our new learning management system. Actually, today I got a couple of updates on that as well. So really exciting that that's been more seamless than we even anticipated at this point. So we're very excited about that. That was a lot of what we didn't get to do last year, right? When the pandemic hit, we standing up a virtual school, typically takes a good 6 to 9 months, and it was done in 5 to 6 weeks as an option. So we know that just the time that we've had since that time has allowed us to be more thoughtful and intentional about putting, a sustainable and quality online program together. So as I mentioned, listening to stakeholders and getting feedback, that allowed us to put together a timeline. So allowing us to make staffing decisions. Our goal is to have an enrollment window in May, which I will share in just a moment, with applications that are submitted in May, and then hiring staff in June. We then are looking at providing information to families in July about what the lab support location will look like. So one of the questions that has come up are, will a student that may need to go in for an assessment be interacting with other students that are at Craft Meadows Intermediate School? And the answer is no. We're hoping to have, well, we're not hoping, we will be having a schedule and hope to have that out before July to allow students that need to come in for a test or get additional support have a way to get into a lab space where it's not during a time where mass numbers of students are in the hallway, and so that's supervised by the online mentors and the teachers that are available to meet those students face to face. We also are looking at setting a schedule so that those students that are fully online, similarly to like last spring, have synchronous, so the same time they're online with a teacher, that would be happening several days during the week where they would be on for a lesson, a live lesson with the teacher, but there would also be some asynchronous times for students to be working independently as well. So we will have that schedule. We've already got those primarily done from last spring, but we want to review them and tweak them based on let's say a second grader who may have 45 minutes 3 times a week of English language arts and 45 minutes of math 3 times a week, and working independently at other times and getting help one-on-one at other times, and putting out what a student's schedule would look like. So our goal is to have that done, soon, but no later than August, so that families can see specifically what times of day those students would need to be available, or how much time per week. And again, if you look at our continuity, instructional continuity plans that we had online last year, it will be very similar to those that kind of highlighted by grade band, K1, 2, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12, how much approximate time students would be online per week. And finally, we're hoping to have all of our pacing guides, our local and state assessment schedules done. Some of that's going to be dictated on what the state's testing schedule looks like and what the testing requirements will be for online students. And this will be as the school year begins as well, when they're going to be required to come in and take face-to-face testing, and how they can get support and help for that. So at this time, I'm going to take a breath because that was a lot of information, and turn it over to our moderator for any questions that may have surfaced during this first half of our presentation.
Great, thank you so much. We do have a, excuse me, we do have a few questions. First of all, will students be able to move freely between full-time in-person face-to-face learning and full-time online learning in the 2021-22 school year?
Right, so the answer to that is that all students are going to be default face-to-face. So if families would like the fully virtual option, they're going to complete an enrollment application process in May. And then once they're approved, students would not be able to make a switch back to face-to-face learning until the end of the first semester. That would be the same for students that are face-to-face to start the year and decide they want to switch to fully online. They would have to do that at the semester break only. They could not be switching back and forth.
Great. And just a reminder to everyone that if you would like to submit a question, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen if you are logged in through Zoom, and you can ask questions anytime. There will be a second question and answer period as well. So any questions we don't get to right now, we can get to at the end of the evening. A couple more before we move on. Will the curriculum be the same as the kids have in the classroom? And a related question, for the high school next year, will face-to-face students continue to be using primarily Michigan virtual academy classes for in-person instruction as they have this year, or will it be more like instruction that took place prior to COVID?
Yeah, so the curriculum will be similarly paced according to our approved district curriculum and aligned to state standards in terms of what's going to be online. In terms of the high school, students that are face-to-face will be getting face-to-face curriculum. There will not be online Michigan virtual curriculum like was happening, but that will be only for the fully online course for this year until we are developing all of our online content in the subsequent years.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit more about extracurricular activities and sports, and will students that are fully virtual be able to participate?
Students that are fully virtual will be able to participate in sports. If there's specifics to extracurricular, I mean, we aren't providing, busing during the day or, for students in terms of them getting there. So they would need to have transportation to school. I don't know, Dr. Martin, is there anything else I need to highlight
No.
for extracurricular? Okay.
Yeah, so for sports, since all the sports are after school, and we won't be coming to their house to pick them up for practice after school, the kids and families will be responsible for getting their kids to and from practice. But sporting events, if you are Cal connected and you're fully online, you would ride the bus just like all the other kids to the sporting event. So kids will be able to participate in athletics, but they will not be shuttled, if you will, back and forth from them.
Okay, and sort of in a similar vein here, how would specials work for fully virtual? For example, phys ed, music, etc.
So because they're fully virtual, and I'll let Kristen maybe jump into this as well, this is very different than what we're doing. So your electives will be virtual as well. So kids won't be taking some classes online and coming in for PE. They will have whatever course, elective course options that are available through the online system would be their course options.
Okay, anything to add, Ms. Flynn?
I think Dr. Martin covered it, just that they would be, the elective options would all be online.
Okay, great. Question about enrollment. Will everyone that applies be able to get into full-time online learning? Are there a specific number of spots available?
Great question. Well, those that apply for Cal Connected full-time online learning are going to be equitably evaluated according to the standards of enrollment that we talked about in learner readiness for online learning. But we don't have a set number of students that, there's not there's not a threshold if certain number wanted to participate.
Okay, great. 2 more quick questions and then we can move on. Can you talk a little bit more about the scheduled synchronous learning? Is there any flexibility in that?
Some of that has still not been fleshed out. We're taking what was successful last spring and tweaking it by grade band and appropriateness of students online. We certainly don't want, a kindergartner to be online for 8 hours a day, and that's not our intent. So going back and looking at what worked and what was successful, the kinds of things that we felt students need, and again, getting teacher input, of course, on this, of what worked best for face-to-face virtual, live instruction versus students working on their own. And so we want to go back and reevaluate those. So I don't have a set schedule, but we are planned to, following this meeting, hopefully before school gets out, as the summer rolls out, be putting out a tentative schedule by grade band of the time that students would be online per week and what they would be doing individually on their own and how they could get support one-on-one with their online teacher. So more to come.
Okay. And then finally, before we move on, how often would students have to come in for testing? And is that just for standardized testing?
Again, to be determined. They would for sure have to come in for standardized testing. There could be some local assessments that we're not able to do online that we might need them to come in for as well. But I would say it would be a time or two during the semester, most likely.
Yeah, we're going to have to determine that, but I think they probably will have to come in for like SAT testing. as an online student, and the other ones will have to gain some clarity, and we'll put that out, but it won't be a regular schedule all the time coming in.
And some of that will be based on what the state decides to do with state testing.
Great. Okay, if anyone else has any questions, again, you can hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen if you are tuning in through Zoom. Why don't we move on, and then we can do one more Q&A session a little bit.
Awesome. All right, well, I just wanted to point out here that our enrollment will be done through PowerSchool. It is not yet set up, but when we have the window open, we will have a place in forms and more information coming out about how to do this, but you would select the Caledonia Connected enrollment application. We are going to be allowing a window of time to enroll between May 10th and May 28th. This is going to be allowing us then time to make sure that we notify families, have time to connect with them to make sure that they understand what they're signing up for, what the expectations will be, and that their notification would be done by the week of June 4th. And then what we're asking is there's extenuating circumstances between June 4th and the start of the school year that we'll have a week window in August where those changes could be made back to face-to-face if something had changed on a case-by-case basis. But we're asking that we're not doing a major flip-flopping over the summer. We won't have staff available to even be doing that unless they're a brand new enrollment to the school district. And finally, looking at selection criteria, we have multiple things that we use, but we primarily want to look at, have students previously been successful online? Have they had consistent engagement and attendance in their courses? Is there, guardian and parent support at home? And maybe even considering extenuating family circumstances where, students needing to be quarantined for a longer period of time, or health issues or things like that. Those are some of the selection criteria that we're using in terms of making sure that it's a good fit for students to be online learners. One of the exciting parts is that we have a lot of things in place that when we did this last spring and did pandemic remote learning, that we didn't have in place, and that is social emotional support. So students that are needing mental health support, counseling, we will have systems in place to help support students more thoroughly than we did this past spring and this past school year. We're so very excited about that. We certainly will, as we're required to by law, have eligible students under Section 504 and IDEA be provided accommodations as identified in their individual education plans. And then really what we just found out, which is really exciting, is that we are going to be allowed again for the school year to have free lunch and breakfast options for all Caledonia students. So that is awesome in terms of nutritional support. And as I mentioned, students will be issued a Chromebook, and we will have one-to-one technology for the whole school year for all students. So whether you're face-to-face or online, students will be able to have a Chromebook accessible to them. And with that, we're going to roll it out to the second questions. I just wanted to point out that we have two online lead mentors who have worked with K-8 and 9-12. Their emails are at the bottom. They are more than happy to answer questions that may come up. They've been part of this research and training and all of that the last few months. And so if you have questions, feel free to email David for K-8 questions and Taryn for 9-12 questions. Their emails are on the screen. They then will be meeting with me on a weekly basis like we have been, and we will be adding those questions to our FAQ and making sure that we're getting those questions answered, and or even just questions we may not have thought about for consideration in operationalizing this. So I just wanted to point that out before we start our second round of questions.
Okay, great. Again, if you have any questions, the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. First of all, will K through 12, specifically high school, have synchronized sessions as well?
So I'll start and Kristen will finish. It will be synchronized within the online students. It will not be synchronized to what's going on in the classroom. So it won't be conducive, or quite honestly, kids will be at a disadvantage if they were trying to flip back and forth. So they're going to be covering the same content, but in terms of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the teacher is teaching this and the exact same thing is online, it won't be synchronized in that way. It will be, the online students will probably have some schedule to follow, to be determined, where they would be having direct interaction online with their teachers. But it would be synchronized within the online platform and not synchronized to what's happening day to day in school. Would that be correct, Kristen?
Correct. You know, in the face-to-face setting, you know, like I said, there'll be a Google Classroom or some other approved platform for content to be accessible for students just when they're in face-to-face classroom, should we have to pivot back online. And if it's for a long period of time, we'd reevaluate that situation, that there might be some synchronous time with those face-to-face teachers. But that would be, you know, based on the situation and, you know, how we'd have to be flexible in how we would pivot in that fashion, and for what grade levels.
A question just came in that kind of piggybacks a little bit on what you were just saying, but the question is, flexibility is the main attraction of online schooling. How does that mesh with specific synchronous times for classes?
It doesn't.
I guess it's not
I
clear
mean,
on the
it is attractive, but that quite honestly was one of the biggest things that we saw that led to maybe more kids being unsuccessful, and just a huge challenge for our teachers to be able to manage, because you couldn't count on what you had to do. So it's very hard for a classroom teacher to have, you know, I'm starting with 10, 15, 20 kids in front of me, and then I got kids that I have to serve online. And so it's hard to serve both at the same time, but yet the teacher only has so many hours in the day. So then they're going to do it after hours, before hours. And so it's really not, is really kind of shown not to be very successful for us. Now, the kids who fit the profile that Kristen talked about, in some families, quite honestly, from the very start, they love being online. They like the idea of it. Or there are some students who live in Caledonia, they're homeschool, and they supplement that with various online programs offered by other school districts. So we're looking to create a true online learning program. What we did this year was out of necessity due to COVID. And that's not what this program is.
Two more questions as of now. How are students checking in so they have an opportunity to meet with a professional who can get to know them and help assess their mental health? How do we make sure that these students feel part of the CCS family?
So we're going to be asking teachers that are part of this to have regular check-in meetings with students one-on-one, in addition to the synchronous times and obviously the grading and feedback that teachers will be giving students. So they will have weekly one-on-one check-in with them, and certainly can meet more than that if needed in scheduling an appointment and time. So there'll be some minimum expectations and then opportunities if students need more support to meet either face-to-face or virtually, in addition to the once a week expectations. And again, during those one-on-one meetings, certainly if they recognize that there's a need, be able to deploy some of those resources that we mentioned or other ones to make sure that we pull in additional staff if needed to support them.
Great. Another one, will students have a way to send help or send requests to a help desk or IT requests without having to go through a teacher or staff members? I think the experience was that they're reflecting on was that staff sometimes get stuck in the middle, and it might not be the best use of their time to deal with IT issues. So can you speak a little bit to the support?
We are aware of that issue, haven't gotten that far in the weeds in terms of addressing the issue for this coming fall, but that is one of the points that we're going to be discussing on how to make that a better system than we had last year with more immediate help for students.
Okay, and then a final comment, and maybe something that you can speak to. The comment is, for online, please plan to provide supplies needed for art and books needed to complete assignments. Any reflection on that request or statement?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's one of the things we learned too, is just, first of all, the amount of time and energy it takes to make sure that students have the right resources at home with them in advance of the learning that's happening online. So we will need to make sure that we're really thoughtful about that, and making sure that students and families have an opportunity when they, let's say, pick up Chromebooks, to also pick up all their materials and needed items that they need for that current semester or year or specific course. And certainly if you know, quarantining was an issue, that we could mail those things to students as well.
Okay, that is all of our questions that came in.
Well, if you haven't been aware, we have been doing virtual town hall meetings. These are all with recordings that are available on our website. And in May, we plan to highlight all of our end of year celebrations. It has been this is my 26th year in education, a monumental year of just continuous learning, challenging the status quo, you know, rising above these challenges that are in front of us in order to still try to do what is best for students. And so I'm just really excited about sharing what has happened this past year. And please feel free to tune in. You may only have a student in one particular grade level and may not realize all the other things that have been happening K-12 at the various grade levels and levels. So we're really excited and hope you can join us for that. And if you missed out on any of the previous town halls, those are available on our website. Dr. Martin, turn it over to you.
Yes, so in closing, first we want to kind of acknowledge, and I'm not sure if we have teachers who are online, but just kind of acknowledge the very difficult but great work that our teachers have been doing. This year has been probably the most interesting in my 26 plus years in public education as well. Having to change, sometimes it feel like week to week to whatever is going on. But moving forward, we are hopeful and optimistic that things will be in a much better state now that there's availability for vaccinations that are out there, or just improving conditions as it relate to COVID. And what we found is our families overwhelmingly expressed an interest for face-to-face instruction, which we have, it's been rocky, but we have done, I think, a very good job. When I look at a lot of our neighboring districts, we have been open just as much, if not more, than almost everyone around us for face-to-face. But it has had a lot of ups and downs. It's been challenging. So we plan to move forward with the default of face-to-face learning for everyone. However, we are recognizing and acknowledging that several families have reached out to me from the very beginning, expressing a desire for true online education. And what true online education look like and feel like is very different than what I'll say pandemic online education thrown together in a very rapid time frame looks like. So Cal Connected, we're excited about it, but this is a program for those students and families who really are looking for the traditional online educational experience. And for those teachers, not all teachers will be teaching in this. It will be Caledonia teachers, but it's for those teachers who want to teach in a true online experience. That's what this program is about. Regardless, just trust that we will do our very best to try to provide good service and good education for all of our students. I'm feeling pretty confident that our teachers will continue to find ways to be outstanding, provide high level quality for our students. And we look forward to servicing you face-to-face next year. But we also look forward to those families who truly want online, and we want to be able to service them in the way that they're looking forward to. So that is all we have for tonight. In a few days, I'm sure we'll have this up online for those who may want to view this and didn't get a chance to see it. And we look forward to finishing this year very strong and starting out next year great. So thank you. Have a good evening.